Hello and welcome back to the Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Kieran Rogers.
I'm Louise Crossley.
And I'm Daniel Rolls.
And today, listeners, we are talking about digital marketing trends for 2024. Hey, Happy New Year! We're here! We're here! So excited.
That was
whole new year.
that really was the oddest bit of enthusiasm I've ever
Was it?
seen. It sounded like you were hurt or injured or something.
I know. Well, it's not yet 2024. And we're recording
Don't
this.
tell people that.
I know, but it's just a bit weird.
Okay, right.
But we are excited.
This is always, generally, if you look at our stats, this is like one of the most popular episodes of the year.
Yeah.
Because people want to know what's coming in the year ahead.
Oh, pressure.
What should they focus on?
Pressure.
So I've got a list of things here that I'm pretty certain. And the way I do this is we wait right until the end of the year to do this. And everyone else is trying to be clever. And they put out their trends for 2024 reports in like September of the year before. Yeah. So I just compile everyone's reports, analyze them. Okay. Now, what I did this year, which is particularly clever, I'd like to say, is I put all of them into one big folder. I then trained a GPT on them. So I created a custom GPT to go through and look at all the PDFs and then summarize what the key things that they had in common.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
So
it's like curated curation of curation.
It is. There you go. And
3 layers deep. That's intense.
I think there was a lot of commonality. There's a few things I pulled out here that weren't in other people's reports that I think are going to be important as well. So where should we start? Louise, I'll let you pick. Where'd you know?
So we'll start with voice, image, and video search.
Oh, okay, right. So for a while, voice search has been a thing. You would go to your Alexa or something else and you do a search. You could go into the Google app and you could do a voice search. A certain amount of people did it. It's okay. With the launch of things like Google Gemini, their AI, which is multimodal, which basically means that it's audio, video, code, text, all in one place. You can suddenly search by saying, what's this picture? Or you could go through and say, this video clip, where are there similar videos? Or you can draw a sketch of something. Because I'm sure I saw something that looked like this. Can you find it? You can already do it in Google. You can hum something and it will try and recognize music for you, which is quite fun as well. So suddenly this comes of age a little bit. But you just need to think about, okay, if you've got images on your website, have they got descriptions around them that give them some relevance? So things like your alt tags become even more important. Not that they weren't important, they were massively important before for accessibility, but they become really important as well. If you've got video, have you gone through and done the transcripts properly for all of those videos and so on?
Is the video file name named what it is?
Right.
That's the thing, not 18745.
Yeah. Just simple things, little simple things, SEO. But I mean, the reality is the AI is going to untangle a lot of this stuff anyway, but just making sure you've got the clarity on your content to make it easier to kind of understand is really important.
It will do. You just need to give it that little bit of help, right? Give it something to start with.
Yeah. And think about those different search behaviors. As well. So we've already seen it that in YouTube Shorts, there's now an AI that's describing what's going on in those shorts. They will expand that through to full YouTube videos as well. You will have the option to go in and correct or edit those as well. So make sure you're doing that because that's going to make a difference. So yeah, voice, image, and video search is quite an important one as well. Kieran, why don't you pick one?
I want to talk about cookieless future. What do you see for our third-party cookieless future, Mr. Rowles?
So what you'll probably be aware of is that third-party cookies are disappearing. I want to clarify. You go to a website, you see some ads. Who's setting the cookie? It's not the first party. It's not the website you're visiting. It's not the second party. It's not the advertiser. Generally, it's the third party. It's the ad network. And Safari and various other browsers are blocking those. As of January 2024, you will see that Google Chrome is starting to block these as well. So it's kind of they're disappearing. Cookieless future, we're not talking about all cookies. We're talking about third-party cookies, generally speaking. First-party cookies, i.e. when I visit a website, that's where it's at.
They're like low-fat cookies, aren't they? Kind of almost healthy. Almost one of your 5 a day.
I would like to suggest that low-fat products are not healthy for you at all. And we're going to get into a whole different area of description.
Let's not go there.
Anyway, the reality is that we have the opportunity to focus on first-party cookies. So that's making sure that we have got a CRM system that's baked into our website, that's collecting data and putting it into one place. So if you look at GA4 is there because mainly the fact you've got less cookie data. That really means that we need to be looking at what we can collect on our websites and making sure that we are building that data profile in an effective and a privacy-friendly kind of way.
That also, when you come on to making sure that you're collecting your own data, that sort of brings you on to personalization as well.
Yeah, because you need to think about this, is that you can change the content of the website. I can change the chatbot interactions. That becomes really important. I can change the emails I trigger out. I can change my targeting for my social ads and so on as well, all by using this data appropriately. We tend to maybe use it for triggering emails, but what brings me on to something else that's connected to this, that cookieless feature is important. You need to think about your first-party data. You need to collect that into one single customer view. If you do that, you enable something else that's in here, which is automatically optimize campaigns and marketing mix. This has been becoming more and more possible over a period of time. But essentially, if I've got a CRM, so I've got a HubSpot or a Salesforce or a Nutshell or something like that, I've got all that data in one place. I can suddenly go, oh, well, you're this type of person. You did this previously and you purchased this. People like that did this. I'm going to show you this content. I'm going to send you this email. This is the right time to trigger that email. I'm going to actually show you this video instead of this video because I know you're in this industry and therefore this will be the most relevant video for you. I start just to automatically start doing some conversion rate optimization, but I'm also triggering out the right content at the right time as well. When you put AI into the mix, I'm giving you a chatbot interaction that's really relevant for you. It knows all about your organization. Suddenly we're doing better marketing, more relevant marketing, and we're semi-automating some of those things as well. If we've got the data, if we've got joined up systems, and if we've got the capability of doing those things. So that means those organizations that have joined up data, have collected good first-party information, have gone through and got the right functionality, are going to be getting a competitive advantage over those that haven't. And if we go back to the interview that I did with HubSpot a while ago, they saw, we're not just going to do a gimmick with AI, we're going to start baking it into everything we did. And they had their HubSpot chat spot, which was basically the chatbot that knew all about your organization and your FAQs, and you could add all that data and so on. So those organizations that are not embracing some of these AI technologies will be at a competitive disadvantage. So we've just got to make sure we do that in a joined up, privacy and user-friendly way. So it's actually a better user experience and not just bombarding you with AI chat.
But I think it's easier now to do that than it ever been.
So much easier.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to create just some simple audiences in GA4, and it's so easy to create lookalike audiences from those audiences, and it's so easy to integrate that with your ad campaigns.
Right.
It's so easy now to add offline conversions into your analytics data. You know, like for a lot of B2B businesses, I would say, you know, that should be a trend that you are looking to follow. And actually, Google have got people that will help you with this, particularly if you're looking to use them with the campaign. So reach out to your AdWords execs and they can help you with that. That can make a huge difference because actually, if I've only ever been looking at lead data, because that's what's on the website and that's what automatically gets fed through to GA4, then, you know, I'm leaving a lot of money on the table. Actually, if you can train the AI on actually good customers look like this, and can you find more of these, please? If you can give them even if it's just like a weekly manual update, which is quite easy to do, you can set up a nice simple integration with like Google Sheets,
right?
Like pull it straight through. Quite easy to do. You just point Google AdWords out that can make a huge difference to the outcomes that you get. Because now, you know, things like Performance Max have got some meaningful, meaty data to actually get the teeth stuck into, and now they've got a good chance of hitting those ROIs that you've been setting the bar higher and higher on.
Do you know what I think is the most fascinating thing about all of this? Is how many years it's going to be before you stop saying AdWords.
2024, and he whips that one out to beat me with.
Exactly.
I know. Yeah, everyone still knows what I'm talking about.
They do. That's it. And I think that's it, mate. I think they should change it back. I think I'm going to start a campaign with Google, so they should change it back, and you would have been right all along.
No, don't do that, because I'll finally got it.
You'll start calling it what it's called now.
Exactly. Yeah. So, one thing that kind of leads on from this, which I think is interesting. So we're talking about the data and the optimization. Let's talk about people for a moment. And I heard this expression, which I hate the expression.
But it will be upgraded with AI.
No, unfortunately not. That would be quite good. This is an expression I heard, which I don't like, but actually the thing behind it is really important. So we always talk about value for money, right? Yeah. So I'm going to make sure this product gives me value for money. Yeah. Well, people say it's not just about that anymore. Oh, no. It's now about value for sustainability or value for experience.
Oh, I love that.
I don't like value for sustainability.
Oh, no,
I think sustainability is really important to us, right? Yeah. And we think that's important. And I like the idea. I just don't like the value for sustainability piece. I'm not sure. I just think it's like you've jammed a word in that doesn't quite fit in that sentence. Value for sustainability is just like, does it provide do I like this brand? Do I feel it's sustainable? Do I feel like they care about it?
Yeah, but I think that's like not that what they're trying to do is
I get that's what I like what they're trying to do.
Engineer the whole business is
Not just about money.
profit and
Yeah,
money.
exactly.
When because it's not.
No.
You know, it's about sustainability.
Yeah, well,
do you know what? Sustainability in business has always been a massively important thing because if you're not sustainable, you die.
But yeah, think about
the
when it
bottom
goes wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
So the thing with this is that it's talking about value alignment, and it's saying, and we talked about value graphics and those kind of things, is that actually there's never been a more important time to really show what you stand for as a brand, if you're actually living that, if you mean it, if you really do care about these kind of things as well. And actually, people are making decisions on that basis more and more as well. So do they care about the environment and the planet and sustainability? Therefore, what are you doing? Are you doing, no greenwashing, but are you actually doing this? But also value for experience. Actually, if two products do the same thing, but one is a beautiful user experience, am I willing to pay for that? I probably am. Okay, depends on my audience. So just thinking about that value alignment, what really matters to people, and therefore doing that. I mean, I think if you look at what Moz used to do, and Rand Fishkin has carried over to Spark Toro, it was all about, the transparency, and they had those set of kind of values and principles they always live by, and people really like them for that reason. So thinking about that, and that becoming more and more of a trend as time goes on as well, that people selecting brands that they think actually care about the same things as them. Let's move on to something that I think is quite interesting, which is when we talk about AI and GPTs, and you could create your own open AI GPT. So you could basically take ChatGPT and you could customize it to do the things you wanted it to do. And you could give it instructions. You could connect it to the data and you go, here's all my stuff. The big concern from everyone is immediately, wait a minute, I'm putting all my data into training the AI. I've just lost all that data. Anyone else could use it. I've lost competitive advantage. You're going to see more and more private, basically AIs, where a couple of different flavors of this. One is that you can train it and give it all your data, and then it can output things into the external world without exposing that to the AI more broadly. But interestingly, internal AIs. So basically, if I've got a customer service agent, can I give them something that answers all their questions they can interact with? And I've trained it on my frequently asked questions, all my previous data and all those kind of things as well. So starting to see them being used internally and externally to interface with things. But what that leads to is new types of web interface. So roll with me with this one. When you go to a website, the design of that website is a byproduct of how HTML was created. Okay, so HTML, standing for hypertext markup language, is basically was created for academic things to mark up documents. So here's a book, and then I want to be able to click between different pages. That's what it was designed for. It wasn't designed for e-commerce and social media and all that stuff. And we've kind of fixed that with cookies and JavaScript and all these other technologies. But then what it ended up being is, okay, I'm on a website, I have to navigate down to what I'm looking for. There'll be menus and sub-menus, and I'm going to kind of go, right, I found what I'm looking for. So the functionality has created the form in that we've ended up with this particular way of drilling into
tail
things.
wagging dog.
Yeah, there's a bit of that going on. Whereas actually, if I've got really smart AI-based chatbots that are able to give me whatever I want, why not front and center have that chatbot? And I can start to go, right, here's the product. What do you want to know about it? What do you want to do? And I can go through. It might give me some pre-options, but maybe I can speak to it. Maybe I can type in my questions. I think you're just going to see chat and voice chat being more front and center as part of the user experience, but having the memory. And this is the interesting piece. If you go back to a website the second time, can it remember what you did before and carry on the conversations from where you were having them before? Can it tell based on what you're clicking and what you're interested in, and then try to have those sensible conversations? Sometimes you're going to want to click. Sometimes you're going to want to query things as well. The thing is, we've been trained that search functionality in websites is terrible. Like you put a search in, you're not really expecting to get what you're looking for.
So you would use the nav because the intuitive nav is always better.
Easier. Yeah.
But actually, now you're saying this, there's a lot of technologies that fit into place. I think maybe the whole mega menus and menu-driven system is just it's out of date,
right?
Why wouldn't I want to actually just interact with the screen through voice, and have rather than lots of text, have the welcome.
Well, typing's really slow.
Yeah, but the whole thing can be auto-generated. I'm fascinated by some of the new AI avatars that you can create. I was showing you one. Hey, Jen, I've just done the ability to create custom avatars. So, Louise, we could give it 2-3 minutes of video of you, and then it will automatically create an avatar of you that will say whatever we type in, and that's phenomenally useful.
Dangerous and useful.
Can be. But look, like Louise, wouldn't you want to interact with a store with a human kind of more human interface than with menus and drop downs? And
I think it's anything that saves time.
Well, I think this time it removes friction, right? At the moment, getting to a website, navigating to what you want gets in the way a bit, but it's less than typing it in, okay? So actually, I'd probably still navigate. But if I haven't got to type it, if I can just speak to it and say, right, and just ask it questions and it react to my voice and understand, then there's potential will go that way. If you look at science fiction, right? Yeah. It was a hey computer, and you'd go through and you'd ask it things and interact. That's what we're kind of moving towards. But why shouldn't a website be like that? Because the gap between websites and apps has got smaller and smaller. You can create much more custom interfaces. So if you go to targetinternet.com and you sign up as a member, the back end is an app interface, even using it in a web browser, but it's a much more intuitive, kind of frictionless experience. Add in voice, add in the ability to interface the way you want. Bear in mind from an accessibility point of view as well, if I can speak to it, if I can type, if I get those different options, I give people what they want, but also some people would need that to access the content in an easy fashion as well.
So I don't think we're going to get there yet until the platforms are there to support that, and they're not at the moment. If I look at Magento or Shopify or any of the big big commerce, any of the big e-commerce platforms, I've not seen anybody that's delivering this yet.
Right, but I think.
Do you think in the next 12 months we might see
HubSpot are really embracing AI as a baked-in feature to everything?
Well, literally them and everybody else. I mean, the day doesn't go by without somebody announcing some.
Well, Adobe have done it as well, right? Yeah. So, and bear in mind, most of us are using Adobe tools one way or the other to build websites in many cases as well. So I think it's a trend prediction. Is it 12 months? Is it 24 months? But it's certainly in the next year or two, we're going to start seeing some real shifts. And I think because of the need to differentiate, because it's such a noisy environment, you'll see some people doing some interesting experiments with this stuff as well.
Makes it very hard to justify huge expense on a new website right now, right? Over the next 12 months.
Don't say that, because that's the hanging on to balloon thing that people always do, right? It's the whole thing of like, let's not pull the trigger yet. Let's not pull the trigger yet. Let's just hold off doing this at the moment. And the problem is you do that and suddenly 5 years have passed and you're horrifically out of date. So I think bearing in mind these things are all happening, maybe just when you're having those conversations about design, thinking about what would this look like if it was a chat interface? What would this look like if it was a typing interface? And just having those options up your sleeve ready is probably a better way to go. But you're right, people might go, let's just wait. But I think this AI stuff is doing that everywhere. There's so much change. It's like, well, let's not do anything now because an AI tool will solve this in a few months.
Seriously though, if I'm looking at investing in a website, I'm looking at minimum of 3 to 4, sometimes 5 years, depending on the scale of the project.
Yeah,
and it might take 18 months to even get it into place. I personally, I would not want to be signing off on any big projects.
But I think
right now.
that model's wrong. I think no, I think you're right in what you're saying, but I think the model's wrong in that if it's taking us that long to launch something, we have an agility problem, right? Because we're building something that's perfect and then launching it, which is a natural thing to do, but it's going to be out of date by that time. So we have to take on more agile methodologies, and this is the thing. If your brand's right, you should be iterating your website constantly rather than just doing maybe a massive rebuild every 5 years. So that thing of like really being able to change bits and pieces and change different sections and so on as well. Because if the brand's right, you should have the consistency of branding, consistency of navigation, but actually improving different sections. And I know it's not that simple, but if every principle of digital transformation is building in organizational agility, it shouldn't be that when you're building websites, it's a 3 to 5 year cycle. It just doesn't make any sense. So I agree that's how it works now. I just don't think it should be.
It is still weird to talk to your computer and it talk back now, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, if you've played with the ChatGPT app,
I would rather click on a menu right now. I've not seen anything that makes.
I think the problem being is that there is too much friction. It's not quite there yet. And I think your experience of your Alexa and your Siri and all those kind of things will make you think actually it's easier just to type things in half the time. But given the right scenario, that will probably shift as well. So I think there's going to be a change, and it won't happen overnight, but it will gradually replace things. You don't think so? We'll see.
It might happen quite
Quickly, I see. Yeah.
It just needs a few of the major players
To
to
demonstrate.
give us the infrastructure to do it. And if it's as big an uplift as I think, like that example you gave of like speaking to like your Google Assistant or Siri or Amazon Alexa, that's so much worlds apart from discussing things with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Like we can see that. Now ChatGPT doesn't yet speak it back. It types.
No, it does. The app does.
Does it? So
the app speaks to you in really natural voices.
I haven't got that working.
So
but I haven't got a pro account.
Yeah. So the app will go through.
I think.
Yeah, so the app through, but you can go through with the app. It will speak to you, and if you listen to the difference between Siri and Alexa's voice, and how natural the voice in the ChatGPT app sounds, it's kind of light years apart as well.
And also, it makes you wonder how non-advanced, for example, Siri is, because even now, if you ask Siri like what the weather's like tomorrow, it's like, well, hold on, let me go look that up for you.
Yeah, the thing is that very different technologies, right? And the basic thing is, if you can't make ChatGPT available to your kids in your kitchen, it's not ready for that yet. It's not safe for a family scenario in many situations, and so on.
Hilarious.
Well, exactly. With our kids, particularly, knowing both our kids, but the situation I think is that we've got a set of technology that's in our houses, and this new technology is just overtaking it. What you will see is those things will suddenly be integrated with these things. So that's where it will kind of shift. But if you think about your voice assistant, Amazon haven't got their own one, Apple haven't got their own one. So, that's why you haven't got those assistants. Whereas Cortana's going to be tied up to all the Microsoft ChatGPT stuff and so on as well. And then if you look at Google, well, they're going to tie it up to the Bard stuff and so on. So some of them will suddenly start getting ahead of others, I think, as well, when you look at the Home Assistant stuff. That actually ties in really closely with some other trends that we've got in here as well. So we've got these like kind of privately data trained kind of GPTs. AI agents is the idea of letting the AI loop through a task. Okay, so you go solve this problem, build a task list, and it goes task list, and it does task 1, then it does task 2, then task 3, task 4, and it kind of learns as it's going and generates more questions and so on as it goes through. Now that you've got the ability to use plugins, now you've got the ability to connect to APIs, suddenly you can send the agent off to go and do something and then only come back when it's completed it. The quality of those results, I've just played with one, an experimental one, to build a marketing strategy. It was amazing. So it went off, it basically did all the stages of a strategy, because that's pretty basic. You take your standard kind of planning model. And then it went off and said, okay, I'm going to research the persona. And it looked up industry reports to say, what were the challenges of these particular people at the moment? It said, what's the market trend? So there's very standard questions, but it could go off and research those things now and then come back. And the one I was experimenting with, it could look at multiple sources and then draw trends out of all of them that had in common, was the way it was doing it. And what it then came back with was a PDF'd digital marketing strategy. It used quite a lot of credits using ChatGPT to do it. So it wasn't a cheap thing to do from a kind of a data point of view. But we're going to see more and more of these. And if we train them really well, there will be agents to do different tasks for you. And actually, if maybe I've got a website, maybe there is a CRO, conversion rate optimization agent, that will analyze my website for me and suggest improvements and so on. There might be other agents that are really good for booking travel for me. There might be agents, and people will refine those agents till they become actually useful. Whereas at the moment, it's all a bit gimmicky and it's not really quite to the extent. So I think people creating agents with the existing technology, but getting it to a specific thing, is something that's going to be a much more common thing. And you'll pay per usage or pay service. And it'll open up a whole, like you've got an app store, well, there'll be an agent store where you can go through and you can identify those kind of agents that are useful.
We've kind of been here before. Do you remember the dot-com boom?
Mm.
Do you think that's what we're at the dawn of right now?
No.
With like the AI? No. Why do you think it's different?
Because dot-com boom was ridiculous values for websites that didn't make any money, right? So pets.com was my favorite. Pets.com, selling pet food online. Hardly anyone was doing e-commerce. People didn't want to put their credit cards into websites, and it was valued at like how many hundreds of millions of dollars. And then someone went, actually, this is nonsense. AI is already fundamentally changing industries and making jobs obsolete and creating new jobs. And I think if you look at the evolution of technology, we are a really, really interesting space, in that this will enable huge amounts of things and it will make lots of things redundant. So I think this is kind of the opposite. I think this will add a huge amount of value to the economy, but I think there's also huge social risks of gaps between unskilled workers and skilled workers. how long before we get driverless cars in lots and lots of places? What does that mean to all those people that drive cars? Non-transferable skills. So I don't think it's .com boom because I think it's value, but I think it will have a huge impact on the economy, both positive and negative.
Particularly low value jobs
Yeah.
in many respects. No, and I actually can't wait for them to bring out AI that does the job of an MP, for example.
Do you see that as a low value job?
I do, yeah, I do. Because I do think AI could do it better.
I feel like I just got deja vu.
Yeah, I think we've had this conversation a few times before. But yeah, that's
hoping someone's going to develop it.
Well, look, there's all sorts of interesting things coming off the back of this, but I think whatever we predict in this Digital Marketing Trends 2024 episode will be completely wrong. I mean, that's one thing you always know. Any prediction will be incorrect. It'll be one way over the side of it. But the AI is connecting to APIs. This is my other big trend. The fact that ChatGPT did this first, you can connect it to an API, so you can pull data in from other places. And when we used to do a lot of digital transformation stuff, it was always one system to rule the all. You get one big system and it would connect to everything. And it's like, actually, no. What we're now doing is getting systems that have APIs that can speak to each other. So when this really clicked for me, this is when suddenly ChatGPT could connect to Zapier. I'm like, oh, okay. So I can set up an automation in Zapier. I can pull stuff in from anywhere. I can push stuff out to anywhere. And then I can plug that into ChatGPT. And then suddenly it's like, well, get this from here, push this to here, upload that. And like, okay, I've just automated 40% of what I do on a day-by-day basis or whatever it might be. So that automation of tasks, at the moment, you need to do it yourself. But if you think, well, if I am Adobe, or if I am a HubSpot or a Salesforce or any of the, why would I not just make it in my system that you can automate stuff? And I'll take stuff from here, put it here, change the shape of it, put a new title on it, output that for you, and kind of streamline those things. Those marketers that are most efficient in what they do, because if we know one thing, we are always busy, right? There's always something else to do, and there's always more things to do. Now, I was speaking the other day to someone who said, well, if you're automating 40% of your tasks, does that mean that you're 40% redundant? You just got loads of spare time? It's like, no, there's new stuff to do now. But it means the playing field that you're on has changed, and you're having to compete at a higher level. And therefore, what really I think is the key trend is leaning into our humanity. And what I mean by that, and this is, by the way, this is a quote that I originally got from Professor Celia Moore. Celia is the professor of ethics at Imperial College. Fascinating, absolutely brilliant lady. And she's concerned about the fact that we're removing the humanity from a lot of things by everything being AI. And actually, from a marketing point of view, it's a really interesting analogy in that you've got AI-generated content, AI-generated videos, AI images. So what is it that makes our brand stand aside? What is it that as a podcast makes it? Well, it's actually the human aspect of it. Like, we could have automated voices doing this, but you're going to lose a bit of something by doing that. I mean, maybe not in the future. Kieran's smirking because he's thinking, well, actually, yeah, it'd be better. I don't know.
No, I'm just thinking it would never bait you as well. I feel I do sometimes.
That's possibly true, right? And
it wouldn't have the Kieranisms.
It wouldn't have the Kieranisms as well. I mean, most of which we have to edit out.
That I make.
We'd have to do the intro 3 times.
Yeah, and we know the difference between Google Ads and Google AdWords as well. So, and it wouldn't be obsessed with QR codes. So there's all sorts of things that you'd lose.
You wouldn't, though, because it's been studying me for a long time.
Well, that's what I say,
in order to be genuinely like me, it would need to make those.
So I think we need to think about, that's exactly what machine learning does. You're completely right. We need to lean into a humanity. What is it that adds the human aspect to things as a brand? So like doing a training course.
In my case, it's the rubbish bits.
Well, that's
lean into those.
Maybe it's that. Don't lean into any more, please. I mean, we have to try and rein you back sometimes anyway. So, but I think if you go and look at, okay, when you do a training course face-to-face versus when you do a training course on Zoom, we do a lot of Zoom training and it still gets you 80% of the way there. You gain something from face-to-face you would not get, which is the small talk and the chat at lunchtime. And I can see from your face you're not really understanding this. So there's nuance and there's subtlety that is missed in some of these things. That will shift over a period of time, but we should lean into that stuff. So that's a good thing to think about for 2024 as well. The other one I've got on this list, which is probably a little bit more contentious, is that AR comes of age, augmented reality. Right. The logic behind this is that Apple have got their headset coming out, their augmented reality headset. And it's the first one that looks like the functionality outweighs the friction to some extent. In that, yes, it's a big lumpy bit of kit you put in your head and it costs a load of money, but actually it's doing some things that you don't really get for anything else. The new Quest from Meta looks
Quest
amazing.
3.
Yeah, it looks really, really good. And we said this with the Quest 2. We said it's got black and white cameras on it because they're doing this as a prototype of what the new one's going to look like. Yeah, it's got color cameras on it. It does augmented reality. It's low cost compared to the Apple device. Good price point.
Yeah.
So I suddenly think, okay, where does this go next? But those devices become lighter and lower weight and cheaper and get in the way less. There's a really natural progression. I mean, through to your augmented reality contact lens that I've always spoken about and so on. But you can see this is the kind of evolution of things. We've also started to see some devices that are trying to not get in the way like your mobile device does, because invariably, if I'm looking at my phone, I'm not connecting with you in quite the same way. So actually, you've seen a couple of devices that sit on your lapel and they kind of speak to you and you can speak to it, but it's not kind of getting in the way. And if you've seen the one that projects onto your hand, so if you put your hand in front of it, you can interact with it on your hand. But what's interesting with these is they're not getting in the way in the same kind of way. But what it also does, and this goes slightly tangential, is it's recording everything you say all day, and it's all recording what you see every day as well. And you can then go back and go, what did my wife tell me I needed to order? I forgot that we had that conversation. I've totally forgotten. Or what did she say she wanted for Christmas? Or what was it that Kieran, what was that URL that he kind of told me about earlier on? And it will go back through those conversations. Now, there's a privacy implication to that, but it will only record your voice unless it hears you say, I give you permission to record my voice.
Right.
So you have to get someone to say it. And you can kind of go, wait a minute, we're going to be recording everything now. And then you can go, so that meeting I had earlier on, can you just summarize that meeting for me? So big privacy, big data that kind of goes with this as well. But we've already seen 2 of these devices launch. Now, how does that make you feel about privacy and content? And would that be useful? Would that be a bad thing?
I'm already a little bit annoyed about it. Already on lots of Zoom meetings, like private note-taking assistants turn up.
Switched on, yeah.
Yeah. There's one called Neuter.
Yeah,
that keeps attending lots of meetings.
And you're like, who's this person? But it's built into it now as well.
Yeah.
And the Teams thing, it will summarize a meeting through it, and it will send the summary through to everyone that didn't attend the meeting.
Yeah.
And apparently the attendance in meetings have dropped because people are, I don't need to go to that pointless meeting, and I'm going to get a summary anyway, so it's not really a problem.
And that's not a bad thing.
Not necessarily
way too many meetings.
Pointless meetings. Yeah.
I mean, you can see the use in it, but it does make you feel uneasy.
If everyone's got a little thing that's flashing to indicate, if I see it flashing, it's filming. Therefore, it's going, well, that's your opt-in. If you don't walk out the way, I mean,
no, it doesn't work.
I know it doesn't work.
Do you remember Google Glass?
Yeah, right.
People were getting attacked in bars because people thought they were filming them and they were out with somebody their wife didn't know they were out with, or vice versa, whatever. But there are real problem issues with that, and I don't think as a species we've evolved the social etiquette to deal with this yet, and yet it's here. Well, it's being thrust upon us.
One of the discussions is it would make everyone behave better.
So in terms of solving crimes and stuff, even.
Yeah, well, you have 1,000 people in a location, someone would have caught something on their camera somewhere. Yeah. But then it's like, oh, this does loads of good things. Yeah, massive Big Brother privacy, implications, all these kind of things. So we're there, and it's starting to happen. So I think organisations are going to start and think about policies for these things. Like we need an AI policy. We need to think about some of these devices as they start to occur as well. But now that it's possible to look at a huge amount of data, video and audio, and then analyze and summary and pull out interesting bits of information, I can see how it would be useful. Because how many things am I told that I forget or that I don't write down? It would be good to have summaries of those in one place as well, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we will go there. And actually, if you've got an augmented reality headset or a pair of glasses, it's doing the same thing. It's recording, it's listening. Where does that end? And when does that become not something that's societally acceptable?
Because it's like you hear when people have got like Ring doorbells installed and their neighbours are getting annoyed because it's recording 24/7 and actually they've not sought permission to record their neighbour's house. Yeah. So then it's like, how would that even work if you're recording?
Yeah. I mean, there's a load of different things that there are implications. Like, so with the smart doorbells, people are using them to work out that you're not at home, but you're still answering it. And therefore, people are getting burgled because they've got them. So there's all sorts of implications of these kind of technologies as well, which is, I think, what brings me back to the value alignment piece we spoke about earlier on. What do we stand for as a brand? What do we care about? Therefore, we set a policy based on that. We lean into our humanity to make sure we're really valuing the human side of things as well, and setting a policy and then iterating and improving that policy over time becomes important. So do you think, Kieran, you would have imagined a year ago that we would be talking about what the trends of the year would be, artificial intelligence, augmented reality and 24-hour video surveillance?
I think both the first two were in our
On the
update
radar.
for 2023,
Right. Yeah.
but the 24-hour surveillance hadn't really
Wasn't really on people's radars as much as well. It's interesting, isn't it?
I think so. Because the whole AI thing started becoming a big thing on the horizon.
Year and a half ago.
2022 autumn.
Jasper was the kind of key thing for switching onto it.
Yeah.
And that was a GPT thing.
When you think, I think it's the rate of it that's growing that surprised everyone. Because when you think even like chatbots on websites, they've been around for a while.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that this is kind of moved pretty quickly. So I think if you want a trend, for those organisations that succeed, it's agility, is the ability to actually change quickly and to adapt and to learn and to implement. And there's lots of things that enable agility. Things like if you've got joined up data, if you've got joined up systems, if you work to define KPIs that aren't too granular, so using things like OKRs, so objectives and key results. So there's lots of things you can put in place that aren't just the tech to enable the ability to use these things and work out, is it a good idea or not? And I think what this conversation is telling me is that some of this stuff's going to be great, but some of it, no one knows the answers to, and we're going to make some mistakes along the way. So you need to be able to do that in a kind of safe way. So creating both psychological safety for your teams, it's okay to fail, test and experiment, but also small tests so it's not business critical. But you need some way of recording those tests and documenting them so you can feed them into the team. So one thing is like, you always guarantee a prediction is always going to be wrong, because you might be near the mark, but you won't get it precisely right. But what you do is enable all of this stuff. And if you can enable it, then you'll be in a good position to take advantage of it as well.
Are there any good kind of ethical guidelines or frameworks out there that people can apply to this with their marketing? Because I think that's always a good place to start. It's one thing to set the fox amongst the pigeons, right? But it's like, well, how do we sort this out?
Yeah, so what I'll do, there's a couple of things we could share. There's one is other people's policies. So there's some good example policies that say, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, this is what you should think about. There's also a couple of great lectures from Professor Celia Moore that I mentioned that talks about how humans make decisions. And I love this lovely idea that you always put yourself in the good box. So you will justify to yourself. You can make a justification for any behavior that you carry out, because you couldn't bear to sit there and go, yeah, I'm a bad person, I did a bad thing. And I mean, there's a certain percentage of people that are psychopaths that don't care. But actually, it's like, okay, how are we making decisions? And she always talks about this little thing that if you're feeling uneasy about a decision, that's your brain trying to kind of work out, wait a minute, this isn't quite right. I'm not quite happy about this. So we'll put a link to one of her lectures on as well, because she's fascinating. But there's some really good points about, we need to really develop critical thinking. We need to really develop a decision-making framework. We need to challenge ourselves and to work out, why am I doing this? Is it a good idea? And if we can do that in an unknown and very kind of ambiguous world, it gives us some guidance for making those decisions. All right, we'd love to hear what you think about the trends, things we've missed, things you think are true. targetinternet.com/podcast and let us know. And as ever, we are running lots of masterclasses on all of these topics. So targetinternet.com/masterclass, and come and join us for a half-day session.
Please subscribe for more videos like this and visit targetinternet.com for more free digital marketing resources.